Well, here we are, and it's Monday afternoon, and it's pouring outside. No, it's not pouring. It's a steady drizzle of rain. Pat, weather report, please, from
That's absolute. It's pouring here, and it's grey, and it's dull. The dark days of winter still with us. What is it they say on the 21st of December? What was dark at 3:55 or something like that? Well, at least it's probably near 5:30 now, I suppose.
That's true. We definitely improve it.
So at least
tomorrow is supposed to be the Irish official day of spring.
That's right. Yeah.
St. Bridget's Day.
Well, there's not. I guess there's not much sign of it. In fact, yesterday it was blowing a gale here. You could have, if you're running up a hill, it could have blown you up the way.
You could have blown in the right direction. Okay, let's go and talk about a few things. Very hard to get away from the topic that we talked about last week, and we talked to Jeremy Corbyn. Incidentally, huge numbers rushing on to see us talking. Well, they didn't want to see Jeremy Corbyn, really. They just wanted to see us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Huge numbers.
I understand that, yeah.
I just want to make that point. But Bloody Sunday was what we were talking about. You made the point, Pat, that not all sections of the community were to be seen at the Bloody Sunday commemorations.
I was sitting watching it yesterday in Sky. It was very moving. I saw people in the crowds and wiping away tears. And Jude, I found it very emotional as well. By the way, I thought, and I don't know why I thought this, I thought the thing was basically mainly confined to families, but obviously the open air ceremony, anybody could have went. I had I known that, I would have gone to it. I don't know why. Somewhere in the back of my head, I thought because of COVID, numbers were restricted. But that's a side issue. Anyway, right, Jude. No, I was listening and watching all the things going on in Sky yesterday morning.
You were watching Sky, Pat. I wanted to just take you on a quick detour. Last night on prime time television, around 7:30 of a Sunday evening, on the 50th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, RTE were screening Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah, by the way, I went looking for it and exactly the same. Dancing with the Stars.
Fail me. Words,
exactly.
Okay,
right.
Go back.
Jude, the day that changed everything. But anyway, right. Yesterday, and anyway, right in the middle of it, it said now we have the Muslim guy, and he spoke very nicely. They had a message from the Jewish community. Over the years, British Army officers have been there. Jeremy Corbyn was there on Saturday. Various British politicians have been there. Various Irish politicians have been there. Protestant churchmen have been there. But the noticeable absence, and I noticed on, was the mayor of Derry, Graham Warwick, who I am told, by the way, is a very decent man, but he's a member of the DUP. And I presume, after taking soundings, the mayor decided that it'd be maybe the discretion being the better part of valor, that he just, it's a bridge too far still for the DUP. Now, Jude, I am told by all and sundry that he's a totally decent, good fella. And I'm saying that on the record. But I presume that the DUP have still got a problem with Bloody Sunday. But you know the thing that really amazed me? A British Prime Minister can stand up in the House of Commons and say what happened on Bloody Sunday was unjustified and unjustifiable, and offer a heartfelt apology for what happened. And in other words, those people who were killed were not IRA people. They weren't terrorists. They weren't anything. So how come the DUP mayor, and I'm repeating, I presume under pressure from within his own community or within his own party, couldn't see his way to going there? And by the way, just putting it on the record as well, when Bishop Daly died, 4 or 5 years ago, as far as I remember, there was a DUP mayor there as well, a woman, if I remember correctly, and she did not show up at that either. So if you're talking about reaching out and making Northern Ireland a more attractive place for nationalism and about a more community spirit and about sort of saying, look, the union matters, why don't you start with sort of saying a wee bit of respect, and by the way, the last thing, Michael D. Higgins has gone to the Enniskillen ceremonies. If I recall correctly, Alex Maskey went to the Cenotaph on Memorial Sunday and reaching out. So, Jude, well, I think I've made my point. I don't know anything more I can add. What is the DUP's problem?
Well, I think you need to maybe, the way I'd say it is that perhaps it's either his party, the Lord Mayor's party or the Mayor's party, the DUP, or else it's a community, or maybe it's the two of them. Now, if it's a DUP party keeping him from going, I can sort of understand that, because that's the way the DUP is built, you know, not an inch into the silos, keep a distance. If it's his community, that is to say, if that's the unionist community, that really, really strikes me as very sad. Very, very sad, because that's that old not an inch, zero-sum game. You know, if it's something that was inflicted on them and they're very sad about it, well, then we should be joyful and keep away from that kind of thing. I think myself that a lot of them, those who would have nothing to do with Bloody Sunday commemorations, would sort of attach themselves emotionally to Colonel Wilford, who says still his men were fired on. There was an interview with him, as a very old man, and he's still saying the same thing. He still believes his men were fired on, he says. So they're maybe attaching themselves to this and saying, really, there were, of course, there was people, gunmen in there. The Paras taught the Derry young hooligans a severe lesson, and we're not going to go and commemorate anything that actually was just giving them what they're asking for.
Yeah.
I see that depresses me to even say that, but I have a horrible feeling that there's truth in that. Yeah.
Well, Colonel Wolford, as William Crawley was on Talkback with Lord Savile on Friday, and Crawley put it to him that Wolford had said the difference between him and Savile was that he had been there on Bloody Sunday in Londonderry, and Savile hadn't. And Savile says, well, yeah, I'll answer it this way. He says, I have talked to hundreds of people who were there, and they dispute Colonel Wolford's version of events, including journalists, including Jude. Not one single person has produced evidence of, or even the only people who have claimed they were firing first are members of the British Army, and they would say that, wouldn't they, to justify what happened?
Well, the thing that has always impressed me most, and it impressed me from the very beginning whenever I heard the news all those years ago, is the fact that the clergy, the Catholic clergy, were very prominent and very definitive that there was no guns firing at the parachute regiment. Now, those clergy, like, let's face it, Eddie Daly was a very vociferous opponent of the IRA and any kind of violence.
And so was Father Mulvey, so was Anthony Mulvey. He was called a West Brit. He was
you can't have it both ways. You can't say that that these guys were guilty of firing on the British troops, and at the same time say, here you have the people who are very critical of them, the Catholic clergy, saying they were totally innocent. Can't have it both ways. But I think it's just deep in the mindset. It's a kind of almost like a knee-jerk reaction.
Maybe I'm told, like, I actually did ask the question from a person I know and knows the mayor well. Says he's a genuinely outgoing guy, and he's a good guy, and he's all the rest of it. And the guy I chatted to, he said, I have no doubt whatsoever that it was the party made the decision. Now, I'm not even sure the community of the party. Some of the older guys who are the old school in the DUP, there seems to be a sort of, what would you say, a discord within the DUP. There's the old, some of them want to go right and some of them want to go left, and some of them want to hold on to the old ways, not an inch, and some of the rest of them want to reach out. And then that's why, and I think as you said earlier on about the unionist community, they're going towards Alliance or going towards the TUV. They don't know where they're going.
Well, I'm afraid I go with Joe Brawley's analysis of this. There was a time after the Good Friday Agreement where you would have got considerable swathes of nationalist / Catholic people who would have said that, they mightn't have said it out loud, but they really would have been quite content to remain within the UK. But that boat has sailed. That boat has sailed, I think. And this is just another reflection of it. And it's very, very sad. I suppose the lesson for us is that, it's up to those people who think differently from the DUP to try to work to create something better, whether it's, a new Ireland, or whether it's progress towards a new Ireland, or making sure that the place, if there is a majority border poll for nationalists, that they make sure that there's accommodation made for those people who would see themselves as unionists. You've got to sort of stretch yourself and try to reassure people who,
well, remember Peter Robinson
haven't trusted us.
Yeah, but do you remember Peter Robinson, who was a very good strategist as far as the DUP was concerned? He basically said a couple of years ago in an article in the newsletter that if they were serious about maintaining the union, they had to start reaching out and sort of, be a bit more elastic instead of this old what we have, we hold. Britain is Ulster is British, and there's no give on anything. It's just what's the most important thing, the union or this sort of old tenets of faith.
Well, I think it's a bit late for that anyway, but I remember at school in history class, we had a teacher from Derry, in Derry, and we would be studying, different regimes in different countries during the 19th century, say. And one of the things he said was, the president was sitting in their place. He made a big mistake. He was a dictator. And then he made the fatal mistake of trying to liberalize things. Once you start to liberalize from the position of dictator, you're finished, because the whole thing falls apart. That's actually not that far from what Monsignor Dennis, what's his name? Dennis Fall. I remember him saying to me one time that the way to, well, maybe I read it, the way towards a united Ireland was for Irish nationalists to educate themselves, and then the reasons for the state would crumble. I wonder if that's at the back of that thing about Kate Hoey.
Judge, that's a perfect segue into something I just read in the Irish Times. Maybe you read it yourself. Alex Kane's column today on the Irish Times. He was chatting about Kate Hoey, and I actually wrote it down, Jude, because I have a terrible bad memory about things. He went back to he said, following Kate Hoey's article, which he, by the way, he wasn't too impressed with. He says he heard a unionist saying nationalist elites are now at the wheel of the Irish unity train, and he basically Kane was saying good for them if they are, because he says basically unionists are so divided, so much on fighting, and he says even civic unionists. I presume he's chatting people like what he called the former rugby international, the solicitor guy. Remember, he came out and tried to sort of say, look, we need to start broadening unionism out and all of that. And he says, when civic unionism makes a suggestion, the first thing is cues, if you stick your head above the parapet, as it gets the head, you get your head kicked off you. He says they pile in and accuse you of being a Lundy, a rollover unionist, or a self-hating unionist, and so on. And he says, they just keep repeating the mistakes of the past. And each time, he says, but basically what Kane was saying is each time unionism takes a step lower down, each time, he says, because they won't listen that things have to change. There's almost this sort of a reversion towards the Jim Allister one, that we sort of circle the wagons and nothing's going to change, that we can control everything.
Yeah, well, would you seriously expect, Pat, that the DUP would start extending a hand of friendship towards nationalists and Republicans? There are DUP people up at Stormont who still don't speak to Sinn Féin people when they meet them in the corridor, or even acknowledge their presence.
Yeah. Well, Joe Brawley had a brilliant article about that the day he went up to Stormont, and he said, quite literally, he said, all the DUP people sat with their backs towards everybody else, and he said, didn't speak to anybody. He said he thought at the start, is there something wrong here? And then he says, he asked somebody, and they told him basically, no, that's what they do all the time. So, Jude, maybe the self-fulfilling prophecy that you destroy the place from within yourself is turning true.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay, let's move on to something more cheerful after that rather gloomy report on the state of play and the fallout afterwards of Bloody Sunday commemorations. I'm struck by, I was going to go back to something, but we'll leave it. Sue Gray report. The Sue Gray, it's been handed in together.
It's been handed in. Hey, hold on. Excuse me, let me interrupt you, Dr. Collins, because I know you're going to say something.
That won't be a change.
No, I'm sure Jesus making a way of life. I want to know, let's see your partial prediction. What do you think is going to happen? Seeing it hasn't been released, and seeing it, we don't know it. Do you think it will make one iota of difference, Dr. Collins?
Well, I'll start with this. It cannot be a lethal or fatal report. It cannot be a fatal report. In other words, it cannot be such a report that Johnson can't possibly stay in office.
Yep.
That's number one.
Hold on. Why do you say that?
I say that. Well, I was going to tell you. I always say, as I was just going to tell you.
Yes.
Well, the reason it won't be fatal is, one, Boris the booster is back. Yeah. There was a moment there where Boris was shamefaced and apologising. Boris is back firing in all his booster guns. That bumptious character is back, and it's very, very persuasive. Secondly, the Tories don't have anybody approaching him in terms of being popular. Boris Johnson, somebody says, is it Heineken that it reaches parts that other beers don't reach? And you can see it yourself. Johnson reaches parts that nobody else gets. No, he's probably the best politician in these islands. That's the truth. He's the thing I used to judge him by is his willingness to have a selfie with anybody. He's just that jolly boostery thing is very contagious. And the third reason is time passes. Time has passed already, and many of the people who are outraged about Boris's conduct and the parties now are just sort of apathetic and saying, "Oh God, it's disgusting." They're not outraged anymore. So the scale of popularity for the Labour Party and the Tories has reversed again. Tories are going up, and the Labour Party is going down. So the terrific boost that they got is fading already before a grey report. So I'm saying, I'm predicting the grey report will not be fatal.
Something you've left me with very little to say on it. I was hoping you're going to. I was hoping you were going to miss out. No, was it Friday or Thursday or Friday? Can't remember. And there was a detectable change in mood. And Boris, he was bumptious. He was, he was that sort of hangdog. I'm apologising. That was funny. And I was watching last night in Channel 4. Andrew Neil did an interview with Michael Gove, and you could see the strategy already in place. Yes, we apologise, but look, the Prime Minister is leading from the front, and our success in rolling out COVID and dealing with COVID, we were one of the first in Europe to get such and such. And you could see, and yes, things were done wrong, but the Prime Minister's working 18-hour days. You could see all the bullshit, all the spin. And I was saying, they have already got a whiff of what's in Sue Gray's report, because it was totally like, let's get on with the job here. That's what the British people want. And you're 100% right, Jude. The boil has been lanced. People are outraged now by all things. Things have moved on. The Ukraine, America, Britain, and Russia thing has all taken over the news. I think people are much more concerned about that. So events, dear boy, events.
Yeah, for sure. I saw that Andrew Neil program actually. I found it very interesting. I find it interesting the extent to which Andrew Neil was saying, in so many words, that Boris was fatally wounded. That he mightn't die now, but that he was, wounded.
Yeah, but there's one thing you did leave out that I thought, you're 100% right. I agree with your analysis 100%. The only thing is, I think there's somewhere in the back, there's a bit of poison. A lot of people are just saying, okay, we'll let him away with it now. But
that's right. I'd agree.
That he's holed underneath the waterline because just don't trust him and they don't like him and whatever. But this is not going to bring him down.
No, it's not bring it. Well, it'll not bring him down now. But
the poison is in the well now.
But a good test will be next May. Don't forget there are local elections in Britain next May.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how do the Tories do in those local elections. How many seats do they lose? How many councils do they
know what that is now. Britain is so divided. We watched it in Brexit. All the I do remember on Saturday, our friend Jeremy said he tried to sell the thing that we need for our economic and social interests, we should stay within the EU, but it needs massive reform, and particularly in terms of accountability and transparency. He says, contrast that with Boris's 350 million a week for the national health. It's an oven-ready deal, and let's take back control. Which was the easy sell, and which was the one that was nuanced and the truth?
Oh yeah.
And he says, remember, Jeremy actually said, he says what the Tory said was totally misleading and completely dishonest. but it won the election for them.
I remember him saying what he said on his talk with us. I remember way back when he was asked when he became the leader, he was asked what he thought of the EU, and he tried to explain that he was in favor of remaining within the EU, but that there were a lot of things, and most people would agree with that, including Ray Bassett would say there are a lot of things about the EU that really do need overhaul, and I would agree with that. I don't want to be part of a super state, but at the same time, you've got to deliver that in very clear, forceful lines. You've got to say, I am for the EU. And then you've got to say, and the reason I'm for it is I want to be inside because I want to change the EU.
But you see, I think Jeremy Corbyn's problem was he was telling the truth. That being part of the EU, a marketplace of 500 million people, was very important for Britain's long-term. But look at it this way. Macron, by the way, is on the record as saying he's already saying that Britain already sees its disaster. No, all these big deals that were oven ready with across the world, they haven't been done. Okay, I think there's a wee bit of boost in the domestic market because a lot of stuff they used to import, they're now having to buy from local sources, and that probably will help short term their local economy. But hey, there's no big deals done across the globe as far as I can see. They certainly aren't boasting about them. So let's see what a lot of the Irish people are now totally bypassing British ports, going directly to the continent of Europe. So let's see in 4 or 5 years how successful Brexit has been.
The thing, just to come back very briefly to Jeremy, the thing that is unfortunate is that the English people or the British people, they like somebody who talks loud and waves his arms around and shouts occasionally and makes jokes. They don't really like people who talk quietly and who don't crack too many jokes like Jeremy Corbyn. So again, it's not even the message; it's how it's delivered.
Like you and I both know our conversations with Corbyn on Saturday. He's a very quiet, thoughtful, thinking man, and he thinks everything through. And Corbyn, by contrast, Boris is bullshits and bumbles and all the rest of it. And I think that, I think you said it before, it's a sort of guy you'd probably, if you met in a pub, you could have a great time with, over gins and tonics. But, like I like my politicians to be serious and my clowns to be funny, not the other way around.
Well, very well. We up all night crafting that one.
No, just going to my head now.
Nice line. Say it again, Pat. Say it again.
I couldn't even remember it. I said I like my politicians to be serious and my clowns to be funny, not the other way around.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, speaking of clowns, oh no, sorry, that's not right. Let's talk about Kyle Paisley. That's the twin brother. I saw the photograph of him and his twin, Ian. It's very interesting, incidentally, that Ian Paisley Sr., when he had twins, named one Ian and the other Kyle. His own
after
name
himself.
being, of course, Ian Kyle Paisley.
Kyle Paisley.
Nothing like keeping it in the family. Anyway, he's essentially saying that, Perfidious Albion and, this idea of towing Northern Ireland out into the Atlantic. And
he repeated, apparently, I heard Dominic Cummings said that, but apparently Kyle Paisley said.
But lots of people have said it, Pat. Lots of people.
But Edward Heath apparently put it on the record somewhere that if he had his way in Northern Ireland could be towed out to the middle of the Atlantic and sank, he would be all in favour of it.
But he'd have to be very lacking in perception not to know that. Surely to God there isn't a unionist around, never mind a nationalist or Republican, who doesn't know that Britain finds the north of Ireland an embarrassment, as well as a costly matter.
There's two things, and they're not necessarily linked, but they're linked in another way. Kyle Paisley says they are unionism is in disarray, and I wrote it down. He says, I would not trust him, that's Boris Johnson, at all with handling Northern Ireland's affairs. And so he's basically saying he doesn't trust Boris Johnson. But here's a totally, I'm going off on a tangent here. My dear missus went to see Belfast, the film, Kenneth Branagh's film on whatever, last Monday night. And she came back and she says, it's a lovely film, but she says, I'm not sure it's too reflective of what actually happened. Anyway, I was reading this morning, what do you call him? Max Hastings, he did a scathing review of the film. No, he wasn't condemning the film, but Max Hastings gave a. Do you know, I'm amazed. Max Hastings was editor of the Daily Telegraph.
Right-wing guy, if ever there was one.
A right-wing as you can possibly. He was scathing about the unionist government, about the RUC, about the bigotry, about everything that went on there. He was 100% on the side of the uprising of the Catholic and nationalist people. I was amazed at that.
Was he talking about Belfast when he said that?
Yeah, but Belfast, he says he came to Belfast.
You know what I mean? I've been talking about the movie.
He was talking about the movie. He said he went to see the film. And he says, and when he wants the film, he says, it came back to him. He arrived in 1969 and he said he was in Belfast. And he says an a police Land Rover and sprayed a house. And he says, I thought this has got to be dummy bullets. And he says it wasn't. And he says he heard screaming and he ran up the stairs. And there was wee 9-year-old Patrick Rooney, his father holding him, and I'm dying. And he says he was there that day. And he said 50 years later, Patrick Rooney's younger brother, or one of his brothers, sorry, I'm not certain whether he's younger or not, I sent him a letter and asked him, did he remember anything else? And he says he couldn't. But Hastings was absolutely scathing about the Northern State. And now, had it been the Guardian, had it been a pro sort of whatever, Hastings, he was the last person. You know, he couldn't have been. He was to the left of nearly Martin McGuinness when it came to about, talking about the history of this place.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, we actually did talk quite a bit about Belfast and the movie. I mean, I haven't seen it, but
neither have I. But my dear missus.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's not a wise idea. Let's go back to Kyle Paisley. I think he's just sort of underlining something that most unionists, I think, know in their own hearts. Most of them know the Brits don't like them. Certainly aren't concerned for their welfare. If there's any clash between what's good for England or Britain and good for Northern Ireland, you mean be sure that Britain will be one that'll get the sweets and the goodies. But it's sort of embarrassing because I always think the best parallel is of a girl or a guy being deeply in love with somebody, and every time they go to them, they get kicked in the teeth and told to clear off, and they clear off. And then they come back again. And they I
think the word you're looking for, Dr. Collins, is unrequited.
Yes, unrequited love. And then some. So you have to admire that their love is constant. They simply love
all the flying.
But it's not a very wise love.
And enjoying the British Army and dying for Britain. It's unbelievable. But Jude, Paisley basically admits that unionism. He says, no, I'll put it this way. He says, basically, the nationalists and the Republicans are looking at unionism and they're sort of laughing up their sleeves because a lot of this is self-inflicted. What's going on? And that is true. You can't argue that.
Can we not? Maybe we shouldn't be doing this. I remember somebody said to me, my son said to me, you need to watch yourself, he said. If you're getting mad about so many things, he said you'll be like that guy in The Simpsons, old grandfather. And there's a photo, there's a picture of him, and there's a cloud overhead, and the caption says, "Old man flies into a fury with cloud overhead." So he said, you need to be a bit more constructive than that. And I suppose we should be a bit more constructive than that, and saying, well, isn't it great that unionism is so fraught and so divided?
There's I think a lot of it's what's to do with nationalism. There was such, pride cometh before a fall, as the Bible says. And I think back a couple of years ago, which we have said so often, there was an overweening arrogance in the DUP. Nothing to do with nationalists. They just thought they had it wrapped up, and they were telling everybody else, go bollocks yourself. We're the masters here, and if we can pull up the drawbridge here with Brexit and put a wall back on the island of Ireland, so to hell with your community and what you want, and so on. And Jude, it fell down round them with a vengeance. And if they had taken Theresa May's deal, all of Britain would have stayed in, and there would be no border in the Irish Sea, etc., etc., etc. But that wasn't good enough for them. So Jude, sometimes you're hoisted by your own petard, as they say.
I wonder if the May election when we're assuming that Sinn Féin will be the biggest party. Events, as you say, but if they were the biggest party, I wonder would that actually in a perverse way be good for unionism, because it would force people to get out of this siege mentality thing and start saying, we really have to do something, and we've got to find ways of living with these guys, because they're bigger than us now. I think that'd be very good, and I think there's quite a section of unionism which is very reasonable. Unionists I meet, I tell you the truth, I like them. I like them. So I think
most of them have, and I don't know what. By the way, I'm reading Northern Protestants on Shifting Ground, Susan McCasley, but I've nearly finished it. And there are a lot of very, people making very good points and so on. And I understand why they want to sort of a union, but they're very fair, and the points they make are well made. Now, I've met quite a few unions over the years, and like yourself, I've met, I'd say, about maybe 2 bigots, and the rest have been totally reasonable. And you'd meet 2 bigots on the Gaelic side any given day too, so let's not get too excited about it. But but there's something about the community. Unlike nationals, unionism seems to go into itself. It won't come out, and it won't. Like maybe we're back to that thing about moderate unionists are scared to put their head above the parapet in case they say something and everybody crowds on them. Jude, if you watch any of the the unions trying to have a discussion, on social media, just watch the hardliners pile on them, big time. It's like blood sport.
Yeah, I think we need to keep in mind maybe what used to be referred to as a prod in the garden centre. There's an awful lot of unionist people, Protestant people, who really don't, who are happy enough in the UK, but I mean, it's not something they would die in a ditch over. They're sort of open to nearly anything, depending on how it's presented to them. So the notion that all of them are like this guy you cited, where is a decent guy, but because his community is telling him, don't you dare go near commemorations of Bloody Sunday, there's an awful lot of guys like the mayor who don't have that kind of siege mentality.
By the way, Jude, I'm just someone I remembered, so I must put it on the record. The guy's name, the mayor of Derry, is called Graham Work. There was an unveiling of a mural in memory of Bloody Sunday inside the Guildhall, if I remember correctly. He went and performed the opening ceremony of that. So this guy is not nowhere near a bigot. But I presume it was a bridge too far for him to actually attend Bloody Sunday. So, the question I'm asking is, the overall question, if we're getting back to that, is what does it take for the DUP to reach out? That's really what I'm saying. By the way, Jude, we better finish shortly. We're going way over.
Yes, right. We're going far too far. Last thing I say is, Ian Paisley Jr. puzzles me, because in many of the things he says and does, he's a very extremely hardline unionist, and yet every so often he says something that is the very opposite of that. Remember that famous moment when he talked about we have to label people and why can we not? So anyway, okay, let's move to the remaining things. Okay, very, very quickly. There's 3 items I'd like to talk about, but we'll see how far we get. Should Ireland have an army or a navy or an air force? Because they're complaining that it's not strong enough to repel possible invaders from the shores of Ireland.
Yeah. Well, I take it this is a reference to the Russian maneuvers off the coast of Ireland. I saw John Taylor, Lord Muck, or whatever you call him these days, making a sneering remark. Will they send out a fishing boat? No, Jude, let's be honest. There is no way. We're a small island. The Republic of Ireland has only got, 5.5 million people. And we have a couple of Navy ships, and we have a couple of helicopters, and we have a couple of planes, but that's about it. There's no way we can take on the might of the Russians. By the way, if the Russians invaded Britain tomorrow morning, I don't think Britain's got the military capability to take them on either. The Russians are way ahead militarily. They have massive army. They have massive equipment. They have massive everything that you can think of. So I advise Lord Taylor to wind on his neck. But having said that, Jude, I don't understand why we have an army. Like, who's going to invade Ireland? What are we doing with them? And what's the point?
That's ridiculous. I think it's something to do with prestige. Practically every country in the world has got an army, and it doesn't make, in most cases, it doesn't make any kind of sense. I'll tell you an example of it on a big scale. I remember reading this argument, and I thought it was dead on. It said, Britain has nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
It's the biggest waste of money you can conceive,
Yeah.
because if somebody attacked Britain, whether with nuclear weapons or with non-nuclear weapons,
Yeah.
America would be in there like a shot. Most of Europe would be in there like a shot. So all this money has been spent on nuclear weapons when America's got enough to spare, and will act on it if Britain becomes ever was to be invaded. It's just nonsense, simply nonsense. So we should accept the same thing. The idea of Irish people having an army, I can't. They say, well, we send them on peacekeeping duties.
What's the point in that? Why are we sending our soldiers over to Lebanon or somewhere else? It's very nice. Maybe it's a wee bit international prestige, but what does it do for us? Really? What does it do?
I suppose if international peacekeeping was genuine and widespread and always used in an impartial way, then I think maybe having an Irish contribution to that would be well worthwhile. But as things stand, it's just ceremonial, and it doesn't make sense to me. Okay, very quick. Right. Anything else to talk about? President Higgins and Micheál Martin were at Bloody Sunday. You're happy with that, were you, Pat?
Well, Higgins was there virtually. Micheál was there. Do you have any?
Higgins really wasn't there at all.
No, and he gave a virtual address.
Why was he not there?
Geez, you need to ask his private secretary.
It was Holocaust. Well, I'll tell you, it was Holocaust Sunday yesterday. So Micheál was involved in ceremonies concerning that. So he sent a message. Should he not have done it the other way around?
Well, I would have thought so, but then well, yeah, absolutely. There's no point in me saying it. I was trying to sort of be very balanced there. No, the Jewish representative yesterday said they had other engagements yesterday. It was Holocaust Sunday, and I can understand why the Jewish representative wasn't in Derry yesterday. But I haven't said that. Michael D should certainly have been in Derry and sent the other way around. Yeah. Okay,
I'm going to end up with this, Pat, because of the time. Here's a question now. Am I right or wrong? I tweeted this last night, and quite a few people responded. Michael D. Higgins was, I could hear, there's a clip on the news of him talking in this film that he sent up, or video that he sent up to Derry.
Yeah.
And he talked about, the phrase he used was something regarding this island.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I remember about a couple of months ago or so, whenever he refused to go up to the celebration or the commemoration,
commemorating the founding of the northern state.
Yeah, and he said then that I had to remind the DUP that he was not the president of the Republic of Ireland. He was the president of Ireland. And actually, DUP hadn't said that, but somebody else must have. So he was very keen to say he was the president of Ireland. Now, in his speech yesterday, he said he was talking about and this island.
Yeah.
So the president of Ireland, which means 32 counties of Ireland,
yes.
Doesn't use the word Ireland, or doesn't believe that Ireland's a country.
No, I presume
that's referred to as an island.
Well, he's a very judicious guy, so I presume he made that decision to use that term deliberately.
Pat, you're very kind. You have a kind nature. That's the kind of person you are. I'm a mean bastard. And I found that.
I've been saying that about you for years.
Huh? What?
I've been saying that about you for years. But wait, all right, go on. Tell me what.
Yeah. Trust you to fall in with what everybody else says.
But hold on. Why are you saying? What interpretation?
I get that. No, it's just a question of, dare we say anything that might upset unionism?
Yeah.
Dare we ever even refer to Ireland as a country? Ireland is a country. It's a partition country, but it is a country, whether you like it or not.
Absolutely.
Ireland may not be a state, which of course, there's a whole thing now that they've deliberately said that Ireland is the state of the Republic. So they keep calling it Ireland, and they keep calling the other Northern Ireland, and as a result, you have two different places. But Ireland is a country; it's a partition country. Why, in God's name, can't Michael D. Higgins take his courage in his hands and just say that? I mean, it's not a big deal. He doesn't have to say.
Jude, I'll leave you with this one. I've noticed now, even a lot of the people in the Republic are doing this one, Derry, Londonderry. And by the way, here's the final thing I'm saying. John Creedon did a program last week, traveling, and it started off in the northwest of Ireland. On the little thing that John Creedon, I know RT, the little sort of promo for that's the RT guide thing said, John Creedon begins his journey in Londonderry. Now the national broadcaster of Ireland says that and this program is about place names. Jesus Christ, dude. Not only is that inaccurate, because it certainly was not Londonderry back in the day, but it's also, when you think about it, it's a bit of an insult to the majority of people there who refer to it as Derry.
Never have done anything.
I can understand, but yesterday I was watching Sky and I saw it up on the wee sort of snapshot, Sky Live, Derry, Londonderry.
Well, Derry, Londonderry is a more recent sort of way of trying to straddle it.
Jerry Anderson used to call it Stroke City.
I don't know. Maybe I'm a wee bit sort of bigoted that way, because the only time when I was growing up Derry was referred to as anything but Derry was when they asked that riddle. Cork, Kerry, what was it? Cork, Kerry, something, Londonderry, spell that without a K or something. And the answer was T-H-A-T.
Well,
I had Londonderry. Everybody called it. Call it Derry.
Look, there was a certain well-known journalist, unionist guy who's now dead. I said to him one day about this, what's this Londonderry? He says, Pat, the way I regard that, because he called it Derry all the time. He says, that's a proud politician on the make. In other words, when you're calling it Londonderry. But anyway, when you think back on it, it's the apprentice boys of Derry. They didn't call it Londonderry way back 1600s, whatever it was. And then there was, look, the diocese. The
song, Derry, Aughrim and the Boyne.
Derry, Aughrim and the Boyne. And then if you look at the diocese, the Church of Ireland diocese, way back formed, 1600s? Yeah? It's Derry and Raphoe, not Londonderry and Raphoe. And you can keep on going. And it's the Derry,
It's used as a weapon anyway. We should shut up, but it's used as a weapon. I can see the reasons why you could say that somebody unbigoted would use the term, because it refers to the fact that all these guys, the various guilds from London came over, and that's why it got this number. If they say somebody would explain historically why they're using it, that'd be kind of interesting, and maybe we'd be more, a bit more tolerant. Maybe not again. Of course, that's asking a bit of us. We really don't do tolerant too much here. Okay.
All the best.
Never an inch. Give it never. No. What we have, we hold.